When my daughter said, "You'll either serve my husband or leave my house," I didn't argue. I simply smiled, picked up my suitcase, and walked out of the home I had spent a lifetime paying for. She expected me to plead as I had before, but this time was different. A week later, I had 22 missed calls, and that was only the beginning of my plan. They would soon regret their words and choices. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and share where you're listening from in the comments. My keys were still warm in my palm as I entered the house, grocery bags cutting into my wrists. Soft Saturday light filtered through the curtains, usually comforting, but not today. Harry lounged in my leather recliner, Martha's last gift to me before cancer took her, feet up, half-empty beer in hand. The remote rested on his stomach as if he owned the place. "Grab me another beer while you're up," he said, without looking away from the basketball game. I set the bags down carefully, red marks across my palms from the plastic handles. "Excuse me? You heard me. Corona, not that cheap stuff you drink." Something cold settled in my chest. I'd bought those Coronas for him with my own Social Security money. "Harry, I just walked in. Let me put these away first." Now he looked at me, wearing the familiar look that meant I was difficult. "What's the big deal? You're already standing. I'm comfortable. The big deal is this is my house." Harry's feet hit the floor. He stood slowly, using his size to intimidate. At 30 he was taller and broader, but I'd handled tougher people long before he was born. "Your house? Funny, because your daughter and I live here. We pay the bills with my money." He stepped closer, beer still in hand. "Look, Clark, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You want to stay here peacefully? Play along." The kitchen door swung open. Tiffany appeared, blonde hair in a messy ponytail, dish towel in hand. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice carrying the warning I remembered from her teenage years. "Your father's being difficult," Harry said, eyes still on me. "I asked for a beer, and he's making it a federal case." Tiffany looked at me with quiet reproach. "Dad, just get him the beer. It's not worth arguing." But Harry moved closer, breath heavy with alcohol. "Here's how it works, Clark. You live in our house. You help out. That means when I ask, you do it. No questions, no attitude. Our house," I repeated evenly, heart pounding. "That's right," Tiffany said, stepping beside him. "Either help Harry when he asks, or pack your things and leave." The words hung like smoke. I searched her face for the little girl who once climbed into my lap during storms. She stared back with Harry's same entitled look. "All right," I said quietly. Harry smirked. "Good. Now about that beer. I'll pack." His smirk vanished. Tiffany's mouth fell open, expecting me to apologize. I turned toward the hallway, leaving the groceries where they sat. Behind me came a sharp intake of breath, and Tiffany's whisper, "Dad, wait." But I was already walking to my bedroom, footsteps steady on the hardwood. Martha and I had refinished 20 years ago. The suitcase came down from the closet shelf with a soft thump. I'd bought it for our honeymoon to Yellowstone, back when the future seemed wide open. Now it waited to hold what remained of my life in this house. I packed methodically, underwear, socks, 3 changes of clothes, just enough. From the living room came low, urgent whispers, Harry's voice rising above Tiffany's softer tones. I slipped Martha's photo into a side pocket, wrapped in tissue, along with my medications, glasses, and the small leather journal where I tracked expenses. When I wheeled the suitcase down the hallway, their voices stopped. Harry sat back in the chair, alert and watchful. Tiffany stood by the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, trying to look firm but betraying uncertainty. Neither spoke as I left. My old Buick started on the first try. I backed out without looking at the house. The 30-minute drive to Pine Lodge gave me time to think. Memories came in waves. Tiffany's college tuition, $40,000 a year for that private school she wanted. I'd worked overtime at the bank for 4 straight years to cover it. Her wedding had cost $25,000. Harry's family couldn't pay their share, so I quietly covered it all. Then the house, $80,000 from my retirement savings for their down payment. Monthly help followed, $1,200 for the mortgage, $300 for utilities, $500 for groceries when money was tight. My social security check vanished into their lives, and I told myself it was love. Martha would have wanted that, or so I believed. Pine Lodge Motel sat on the edge of town, paint faded, neon sign flickering. The room was small but clean, a bed, a chair, a tiny table by the window. I set my suitcase down and sat heavily on the mattress. The silence here was different, less comforting, more hollow. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through contacts, banks, insurance, credit cards. Even on Sunday some things could be handled. I opened my laptop and logged into my accounts. The numbers glowed: checking, savings, retirement, years of careful planning and sacrifice. Sunday morning arrived gray and overcast, fitting my mood. I spread paperwork across the table like a general planning a campaign. Bank statements, insurance policies, legal documents. The first call went to First National Bank. I need to cancel the automatic mortgage payment for 847 Pine Street, account ending 4729, I said. A pause, typing. Sir, that payment's been active for 5 years. Are you sure? Completely. Reason for the change: the homeowners no longer qualify for my assistance. Very well, Mr. Miller. The payment is cancelled effective immediately. Next was Geico. For 3 years I'd insured Harry's truck and Tiffany's car on my policy. $280 a month. Remove both vehicles, I said. They'll need their own coverage, effective today. Then the credit cards. Tiffany was an authorized user on 3 of my accounts: Visa, MasterCard and Costco, costing me $500 a month for charges I never made. Remove her immediately, I told each representative. Each call lifted a weight from my shoulders. 30 years in banking taught me every procedure. I stayed within my rights. The life insurance change required paperwork, but I began the process. $100,000 once meant to protect my family, now meant something else. By noon I'd made 8 calls. Mortgage stopped, insurance canceled, credit cards closed, automatic transfers ended. I sat back and reviewed the confirmation numbers and reference codes, a paper trail of freedom. My phone lay silent, no messages. They wouldn't realize until payments bounced and bills arrived. I looked out the window. An elderly couple loaded luggage into a pickup, moving with easy familiarity. Martha and I had been like that once. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. The week passed quietly for me, not for them. I settled into a routine: coffee from the lobby, breakfast at the diner, long walks through quiet streets. Missed calls piled up. By Wednesday, 12 messages. By Friday, 22. Listening in order, I heard confusion turn to anger, then desperation. At first, Tiffany asked if there was a banking error. Harry left curt messages about the lapsed insurance. Midweek, panic set in.
Dad, what's going on? Tiffany's voice cracked. The bank says you stopped the mortgage payment. They want the full amount by Friday, or they'll start foreclosure. Harry grew aggressive. Clark, fix this now. People are asking about my insurance. You're making us look bad. Later messages bordered on begging, Tiffany crying, Harry trying to sound conciliatory. I deleted each one, feeling only mild curiosity. Thursday morning, a knock on my motel door. Through the peephole I saw them. Tiffany in a wrinkled sweater, Harry in work clothes, both looking tired. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. Dad, Tiffany said, eyes red. We need to talk. About what? Harry stepped forward, face flushed. About you trying to ruin our lives over a stupid argument about beer. I'm not ruining anything, I said calmly. I've simply stopped paying for your lives. The mortgage, Harry shouted. You can't just stop paying. That's our house. Actually, it's my house. My name on the deed, my signature on the loan. You were guests. Tiffany grabbed Harry's arm. Dad, please. We can work this out. We were wrong to speak to you that way, but you can't just leave with no warning. You gave me an ultimatum, I reminded her. Do what Harry says or get out. Those were your exact words. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. You just didn't expect me to choose the second option. Harry tried a calmer tone. Look, we all said things we didn't mean, but this is our home.
our credit, our lives. You can't just pull the rug out. I can, I said, and I did. This version keeps the full arc and length, simplifies word choices, and removes repeated phrasing while staying within the requested limits. I began to close the door. You wanted me gone, so I left. You wanted to manage your own lives, now you can. Dad. Wait. Tiffany's voice cracked. What about family? What about everything we've shared? I paused, studying her worried face. For a moment I saw the little girl who once helped me rake leaves and brought me dandelions. But that child had grown into someone who allowed her husband to humiliate her father in his own home. Family is a two-way street, sweetheart, I said quietly. I spent 5 years supporting you both. When it was your turn to stand by me, you chose him. Harry's forced calm slipped. You crazy old man. You can't just, I can call the police if you keep raising your voice. I cut in. This is private property, and you're disturbing the peace. They stared at me, perhaps seeing me clearly for the first time, not as the gentle father or a walking bank account, but as someone who had finally learned to say no. Harry took Tiffany's elbow. Come on, we'll handle this ourselves. They headed to their car, Harry's swagger replaced by a nervous slump. Tiffany looked back as if she were seeing a stranger. I watched them drive off, then closed the door and returned to my laptop. There were still calls to make and accounts to close. Ending a relationship took real work. I needed coffee and a clear head. The diner on Main Street had always been my refuge when Martha was alive. We used to share apple pie there after her doctor visits. Tuesday morning found me walking the familiar 3 blocks, breath clouding in the cold mountain air. The routine steadied me after yesterday's confrontation. I'd reorganized my paperwork earlier, reviewing bank statements and confirmation numbers like a general with battle plans. The diner's bell chimed as I entered. Coffee and bacon scented the air. I'd barely settled into my usual corner booth when a familiar voice called, Clark Miller. Well, I'll be. Bob Harrison stood near the window, newspaper tucked under his arm. We'd worked together at First National for 15 years before his transfer. He handled commercial loans. I managed personal accounts. We'd shared enough coffee breaks to be friends. Bob, I shook his hand. Good to see you. Mind if I sit? Haven't seen you since Martha's service. He slid into the seat before I could answer. Heard you moved out to Pine Lodge. Everything okay? The waitress brought coffee before I replied. I considered how much to share. Bob was trustworthy, but still a banker. Family matters, I said at last. Needed space to think. Bob nodded, studying me. Your son-in-law tried something a few months back. Wanted a $50,000 home equity loan on your house. My cup stopped midair. On my house? That's right. Claimed it was his. Brought documents and everything. The diner noise faded. But when we ran the title search, Bob continued. Everything came back to you. Clean title. No co-signers. I set my cup down carefully. When was this? December. Maybe January. I handled it myself because of the amount. Bob leaned closer. Clark, it wasn't a mistake. Those papers were forged. The words hit like cold water. 3 months ago Harry was planning to steal from me, long before today's troubles. Did you report it? We rejected the application and flagged him. Technically it's a gray area since no money changed hands, but I kept copies. I thought of all those payments I'd made. The dinners where Harry complained about money while secretly plotting theft. What would he need that money for? Bob lowered his voice. He said home repairs, but rumor is he has heavy gambling debts. How heavy? Detective Jim Morrison might know more. You remember him? I did. We'd served on a church committee together. If Jim had details, they were solid. Bob, thanks, I said, paying for coffee I barely touched. Be careful, he warned. A man willing to forge documents might do worse if cornered. I walked back to Pine Lodge with my mind racing. Harry's demands and disrespect now made sense. I wasn't just convenient, I was his target. His ultimatum wasn't about authority, it was about keeping access to money he thought he could take. Back in my room I opened my laptop and began a file titled Harry Thompson Evidence. Bob's revelation was only the start. If Harry lied about this, what else?
The courthouse closed at 5. I had an hour to act. After lunch I drove straight to the Flathead County Courthouse, an imposing brick building that once intimidated me, but now felt like an ally. The clerk, a middle-aged woman, processed my eviction notice with professional ease. "Mr. Miller, you understand this is your daughter's residence?" she asked, reviewing the deed. "It's my property," I said. "The occupants have broken our agreement." "What agreement is that?" "A verbal understanding requiring mutual respect and shared expenses, both violated." She stamped the papers. 30-day notice begins today. If they contest, we'll set a hearing. Otherwise, the sheriff serves final papers after the deadline. How soon will they receive it? Usually within 48 hours. I thanked her, feeling the weight of legal authority behind me. No more manipulation. Everything would follow proper procedure. Next, I visited the police station. Detective Jim Morrison's office was small and cluttered but familiar. His handshake was firm. "Clark, what brings you here?" "Information," I said. "Bob Harrison mentioned you might know about Harry Thompson's gambling."
Jim's expression sharpened. "Your son-in-law? What's going on?" I explained. The ultimatum. The loan attempt. He listened carefully, jotting notes. "Harry's well known at Glacier Peaks," Jim said. "Regular poker player. Lately he's been at higher stakes." "How much does he owe?" "Different creditors, different amounts. Likely 18 to 20,000. Some lenders are less than reputable." The figure stunned me. Harry had lived off my house and food while burning through enough cash to buy a car. "Who are these creditors?" "A mix of legitimate and shady ones. The latter don't involve law enforcement. He's been stalling 6 weeks. Most give 3 months before acting. Time's almost up." I left with a clearer picture. The gambling, the fraud, the aggression. I wasn't just a source of help. I was his lifeline. That evening I reviewed the day's progress. Eviction notice filed, confirmation of gambling debts, allies who understood the truth. I updated my evidence file, adding Jim's information. Years in banking taught me to spot patterns, and these were clear. Harry wasn't just entitled, he was reckless and dangerous. The more pressure he faced, the more desperate he'd become. Tomorrow I would begin strategic calls, not to pay Harry's debts, but to ensure his creditors knew his real finances, and that he had no claim on my property. In a small town, truth travels fast. By Friday I knew I had to guide the story. My first stop was the post office, where Mrs. Henderson from church cornered me by the stamp machine. "Clark, dear, I've heard troubling news. Everything all right?" I chose my words carefully. "Tiffany and Harry asked me to move out. So I did. Sometimes grown children need to handle their own responsibilities." Her eyebrows rose. "They asked you to leave your own house. But didn't you pay for their wedding and help with the down payment?" I nodded. The facts speak for themselves. Next was Miller's Hardware, where I'd worked part-time after retiring. Owner Tom Kowalski looked up with concern. "Heard you're at Pine Lodge. What happened?" 3 employees gathered as I explained. Their reactions were immediate: shock at Harry's treatment of me, anger that I'd supported them for years. "You paid for their college tuition?" Dave asked, shaking his head. "Harry claimed they were helping you with the mortgage." "Harry said many things that weren't true," I replied evenly. Tom frowned. "That explains why he always had money but never worked overtime. We offered extra shifts, but he always had other plans. Probably the casino," muttered Sarah from the paint counter. By the time I left, the truth was already moving through town. My final stop was St. Mark's Lutheran Church, where Pastor Williams was preparing for the weekend services. He invited me into his office, offering coffee and a chair that had comforted many troubled parishioners. "Clark, several people are worried about you," he said gently. "Can you help me understand what's happening?" I appreciated his directness. He wasn't chasing gossip, he wanted to help. "Pastor, this version keeps all events and arguments intact, simplifies phrasing, avoids unnecessary drama, and maintains the original length and flow while staying within the requested 10% change limit. I quote, "V supported my daughter and son-in-law financially for 5 years. Last weekend, They made it clear my staying in their house depended on following Harry's rules. I chose to leave instead of accepting that. It hurt, of course, but it also brought clarity. I love my daughter, yet I won't be treated like a servant in my own home. Pastor Williams nodded. Pastor Williams nodded. Sometimes real love means letting people face the results of their choices. Sounds like you've been shielding them for a long time. Far too long, I said. On the walk back to the motel, I stopped at Annie's coffee shop for an afternoon cup. The usual Friday mix, retirees, workers off shift, parents with strollers, filled the place. I took a small table and listened to the conversations around me. Heard Harry owes money all over town. Clark Miller's been covering their bills for years. Strange how they lived so well on his paycheck. The story was spreading as expected. Small towns sift truth from rumor quickly. My phone rang as I left. It was Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor of 20 years. Clark, hope you don't mind me calling. There's been a lot of shouting at your house, mostly Harry, some Tiffany. Yesterday the police came by twice. Thanks for letting me know, I said. I appreciate you watching out. Are you safe? Need anything? Her concern reminded me how real community support can be. I'm fine, just taking it a day at a time. That evening I reviewed the day's conversations in my motel room. Social pressure was building naturally. People recognize injustice when they see it. Another call came, unknown number, familiar area code, likely one of Harry's creditors. I let it go to voicemail. This is Marcus Webb from Frontier Financial Services. We're looking for Harry Thompson regarding a past due account. Please call us. Harry had likely used my address on credit applications, more proof of deception, and a plan to make me responsible for his debts. I deleted the message and updated my evidence file. Harry was never one to retreat quietly. Saturday started calmly. I was reviewing bank statements when the phone rang repeatedly. First Tom from the hardware store, then Mrs. Henderson, then Pastor Williams. Each brought the same troubling news. Harry was in town, spreading a different story. Clark, you need to know what he's saying. Tom told me, barely hiding his anger. He claims you abandoned them, broke a promise to care for them, and that you're having a mental breakdown. Says you threw them out because Tiffany wouldn't let you control their lives. He's even telling people there's a family medical emergency you refuse to help with. I thanked Tom, already considering what this meant. Harry was desperate enough to launch a public campaign, likely because his creditors were closing in. The next call confirmed it. Mr. Miller, this is Detective Morrison. Harry Thompson filed a complaint about elder abuse, claiming you're being manipulated to make bad financial decisions. We told him he needs medical proof and witness statements, which he doesn't have. 20 minutes later, Tiffany called. Dad, please pick up. I know you're angry, but you don't understand. I'm pregnant, and the stress could make me lose the baby. A familiar protective instinct stirred, but her timing and tone felt rehearsed. Congratulations, I said. When did you find out? Last week, right before everything fell apart. Dad, I can't lose my baby over money. You always said family comes first. Family does come first. That's why I spent $60,000 on your education and $25,000 on your wedding. But what about now? What about your grandchild? If there's a medical crisis, I'll help. Have you seen a doctor? A pause. I have an appointment next week. Which doctor? Dr. Richards at the women's clinic. I knew Dr. Richards. I'll call her office to see how I can help with expenses. You can't just call my doctor. That's private. You're right. Have her call me directly to discuss payment options. The call ended abruptly. An hour later I passed Harry outside the First National Bank. He was speaking loudly to a small crowd. He's lost his mind, Harry told them. A senile old man, who thinks everyone's stealing from him, kicked out his pregnant daughter over nothing. I approached calmly. Faces turned toward me. Hello, Harry, I said evenly. How's the gambling debt? The words struck him hard. People murmured as I added, $18,000 at Glacier Peaks Casino, mostly poker according to Detective Morrison.
Amazing how much someone can lose when others pay the bills. Harry's face darkened. He stepped closer. You senile old. I can document every dollar I spent supporting you for 5 years. I interrupted. Can you document where your paychecks went?
The crowd was silent, taking it in. Harry realized he'd lost control. Come on, he muttered, pushing through the onlookers. This isn't over, Clark. Back at the motel, I documented the encounter. His counterattack was failing. The community knew my character, but the pregnancy claim still concerned me. I needed verification. I called Dr. Richards's office. If there was a true medical emergency, I'd help, but I wouldn't be drawn in by a fabricated crisis. Harry's behavior was escalating. I called Detective Morrison. James, we need to talk. He confronted me publicly, made threats, and seems to be losing control. Come in tomorrow morning with any documentation, Morrison said. I didn't wait. An hour later, Steve Brennan, the Pine Lodge night manager, knocked on my door. That man who was yelling earlier came back, stood outside your door for 5 minutes, then left, made guests nervous. I have security video if you need it. Would you share that with the police? Absolutely. No one should intimidate elderly residents. Next morning, I brought the video and a written timeline to the station. Detective Morrison reviewed everything. This shows a clear pattern of intimidation. Along with what I saw yesterday, we can issue a restraining order. What does that involve? Harry can't come within 500 feet of you or your property. Violation means immediate arrest, he added. There's more. Friday, Harry consulted a lawyer about adverse possession, squatters' rights. Montana requires 5 years of hostile occupation. They've lived there 3. He was planning to stay 2 more, then claim ownership. It was shocking. Does he have any legal claim? None. You gave permission and he never paid taxes or rent. But it shows planning. I can fast-track the restraining order, Morrison said. You'll have it this afternoon. I left understanding Harry's intent. His behavior hadn't been about dominance but about setting up illegal theft. I called Marcus Webb at Frontier Financial Services. Mr. Webb, Harry Thompson no longer lives at my address and has no claim to my property. He listed it on credit forms. He works at Mountain View Auto on Highway 93. Next, I phoned Continental Credit Recovery with the same clarification. I wasn't paying Harry's debts, just correcting false records. By noon, I'd contacted 6 collection agencies. His house of cards was about to fall. That afternoon, Judge Morrison signed the restraining order. Harry was legally barred from approaching me or my property. Driving back to Pine Lodge, I felt the relief of justice served. Harry had plotted for years to take my home. Now he couldn't legally step near it. A text from an unknown number arrived. This isn't over, old man. I forwarded it to Detective Morrison and blocked the sender. By Monday morning, the order was filed and active. The courthouse clerk confirmed. Any contact within 500 feet is a violation. Moments later, Mike Brennan from Mountain View Auto called. Clark, I need to ask something. Harry claims you're having a breakdown and refused to help with a medical emergency. Is that true? No. Harry demanded I obey his orders or leave. I chose to leave. There's no medical crisis, and my mental health is fine. My banker, lawyer, and the police can confirm. A long pause. I suspected as much, Mike said. Customers mentioned Harry owes them money. One saw him at the casino. This is affecting my business. I'll have to let him go. 20 minutes later, I was having coffee at Annie's when I saw the first debt collector arrive at my former house, Continental Credit Recovery. My phone rang. Tiffany's number lit the screen. This version keeps the length and key details, simplifies phrasing, removes unnecessary repetition, and keeps the tone measured and professional throughout. Dad, there are men at the house asking about Harry's debts, our income, assets, everything. Her voice carried real panic. What did you tell them? The truth, that Harry doesn't own my property and doesn't live here anymore. But they're talking about garnishing wages and seizing assets. Dad, I don't understand this. Sweetheart, that's what happens when someone borrows money they can't repay. These are Harry's consequences, not mine. He owes $18,000. How is that even possible? She truly hadn't known. Gambling debts, I said. Glacier Peaks Casino. Detective Morrison told me. Silence. Then a quiet confession. He told me he was working overtime. I'm sorry you found out this way, Tiffany. The sheriff's deputy came too, served Harry with papers. He's been throwing things ever since. The restraining order, I explained. Harry's realizing his options are gone. He's talking about leaving town. Says there's nothing left. Her voice cracked. What should I do? Decide based on who Harry really is, not who you hoped he was. That evening I parked across from my old house, watching the chaos. 3 different creditor vehicles had come by. Mrs. Patterson next door waved sadly. She'd seen the tension build. Through the window I spotted Harry and Tiffany arguing, his movements sharp and angry, hers defensive and afraid. The fairy tale marriage built on my finances was collapsing. My phone buzzed, a text from Steve at Pine Lodge. That guy tried to get in again. I reminded him of the restraining order. He left angry. I forwarded it to Detective Morrison. Harry was already breaking the order. Reckless and dangerous, but predictable. A man with gambling debts, no job, and legal trouble had limited choices: face responsibility or run. From what I knew of Harry, running seemed likely. Driving back to Pine Lodge, I wondered what Tiffany would do if Harry fled. Would she follow him or finally see him clearly? Either way, the outcome was theirs. I'd protected them for 5 years. That ended the day they forced me to choose between dignity and their demands. I chose dignity. 2 days of watching their desperation was enough. Wednesday morning I called Tiffany. Meet me at the diner. Just you. I can't leave Harry alone. He's struggling. Then we have nothing to discuss. The restraining order keeps me from him anyway. A long pause. Where? Main Street Diner. 2 o'clock. Back corner booth. I arrived early, choosing a seat facing away from the street. When Tiffany came in, she looked older than 28. Stress lines, nervous hands on her purse strap. Dad, I know you're angry, she began. Harry lost his job. Collectors won't stop. The phone rings constantly. People show up demanding money we don't have. I let her finish. I'm offering one chance to end this with dignity. What do you mean? Public truth. Full acknowledgement of how much I've supported you both and why I left. Her face flushed. You want me to humiliate myself in front of everyone? I want you to tell the truth. There's a difference. What kind of acknowledgement? Church announcement Sunday during testimony. Letter to the Tribune editor. Facebook post to our mutual contacts. Full details. College tuition, wedding costs, mortgage payments, and the ultimatum that made me leave. People will think. They'll think you had a father who sacrificed his retirement for your happiness, and that you took it for granted. Tiffany stared at her coffee. What about Harry? Harry is no longer part of anything involving me. The restraining order is permanent. Stay married if you choose, but that means choosing him over me. You're asking me to pick between my husband and my father. I'm asking you to choose between a man who threatened me and the man who raised you. She was silent, absorbing it. What about the house? It's been in our family forever. It's going to the Montana Veterans Housing Initiative. 3 veteran families will live there. People who understand service and sacrifice. The will's already changed and filed. Even if you do everything I ask, the house isn't coming back. Why? Because I need to know any reconciliation is about love, not inheritance. For 5 years you treated me like a funding source. I need to see if there's anything beyond money. Tears filled her eyes, real this time. I'm sorry, Dad. I never meant for it to go this far. Sorry isn't enough. The town saw you and Harry treat me like a servant. Words are just words. I need actions. What if I can't stand up in front of everyone? Then you live with that choice. Harry will likely run from his creditors. You can follow him or stay and rebuild honestly. If you do what I ask, maybe we can build a real relationship based on mutual respect, not guilt or money. She dabbed her eyes. How long do I have? Sunday morning. Church starts at 10. If you're not there, I'll know. She rose slowly, looking fragile. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I studied her, remembering the little girl who once wove dandelion crowns. Forgiveness and trust are different. I forgave you when I left, but trust must be earned one honest action at a time. Sunday came, clear and cold. I entered St. Mark's wondering if Tiffany would speak. The sanctuary buzzed with quiet anticipation. Pastor Williams opened with hymns, then testimony time. From the back row Tiffany stood, walking steadily to the podium. "I need to tell you something about my father," she said, voice clear. "For 5 years Clark Miller has supported my husband and me. He paid $160,000 for my college education, $25,000 for my wedding, gave us his family home and covered groceries, utilities and mortgage while living on Social Security. 3 weeks ago, when my father refused to follow my husband's orders, we gave him an ultimatum: obey Harry or leave his own home. Dad chose dignity and left. I watched my husband disrespect the man who sacrificed everything for us, and I chose loyalty to the wrong person. I was wrong. Harry was wrong. My father deserved respect and gratitude. Instead, we gave demands." She looked at me. "Dad, I know sorry isn't enough, but I hope it's a start." The congregation sat silent, then murmured support as Tiffany returned to her seat. Pastor Williams spoke with tears in his eyes. Sometimes the hardest courage is admitting mistakes publicly. Tiffany has shown that courage today, and her father has shown us true dignity. After the service, people offered handshakes and kind words. Mrs. Henderson said, "We suspected you were helping, but not how they repaid you." Tom from the hardware store added, "Setting family boundaries takes real character." Outside the church Tiffany approached. "The Tribune letter runs Wednesday. Facebook post goes up tonight." She hesitated. "Harry left yesterday, packed his truck and disappeared. No note." I wasn't surprised. Men like Harry run when faced with consequences. "I'm sorry your marriage ended this way." "I'm not," she said quietly. "I filed for divorce this morning. He'd been using my credit cards for gambling. The debts are worse than we thought." 3 months later, I stood in front of my former home, watching 3 veteran families move into the newly renovated apartments. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos guided her children toward playground equipment donated by local businesses. "Mr. Miller, this opportunity means everything to us," she said. "Veterans understand sacrifice," I replied. "This house should serve those who've earned it." My own life settled into peaceful routines at the lakeside cabin I'd bought. Morning coffee overlooking Flathead Lake, afternoon fishing, evening reading. The cabin was small but perfect, with a kitchen for real meals and a dock for my little boat. My phone buzzed a text from Tiffany. "Dad, I'm 3 months into counseling and learning about healthy relationships. Could we have coffee sometime? I'd like to earn your trust back." I smiled at the lake where an osprey hunted. Tiffany had kept her word. The letter and Facebook post were honest and thorough. More important, she was taking responsibility for rebuilding our bond. "Coffee sounds good," I texted. "Saturday at the diner." Her reply came quickly. "I'll be there. And Dad, thank you for not giving up on me." I set the phone aside and watched the osprey rise from the water with a fish. Patience and dignity were finally rewarded. The sun set over the Rockies as children's laughter floated from the veterans' housing, a reminder of the difference between generosity and enabling. Justice served, dignity preserved, and maybe, at last, a daughter ready to rebuild trust through honest effort. It had been worth the wait. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching. This version keeps the full narrative arc and word count close to the original, while simplifying phrasing and tightening repetitions for a professional YouTube script.